Hello and welcome to another edition of SCAN Career Corner, co-sponsored by the Greater Long Branch Chamber of Commerce. Today we have a special guest. Of course, a lot of people say other guests are special too, but I would call Andres Mejer a special guest because he's going to talk about immigration and a career in immigration law and a whole fascinating subject that's always there ever since this country was formulated. So welcome, Andres. And,
thank you very much, Lenny.
It's a real pleasure to have you here. How did you get into this whole bit with immigration law?
I blame my parents.
Oh, good. Everybody blames their parents for something. Starting with your birth, I guess, too.
Well, with that, I'm thankful for that part.
There you go. All right.
But it's really, look, I was born in Santiago, Chile. My mother was from Chile, my father was from Argentina. They met and married, went to Israel, from Israel to Chile, to Israel, to Chile, to the U.S., to Israel, to the U.S. So immigration was our life. It was, when we came here, we came as tourists. They gave us 6 months. We stayed 30 years.
How do you do that?
We overstayed our visa, but President Reagan passed, the Immigration Reform Act in '86. That was the last time there actually was amnesty. My parents went to someone they trusted. They paid about $5,000. 2 years later, they got absolutely nothing. They were victims of immigration fraud. So we learned firsthand the challenges that immigrants go through in their strive to gain legal status. Then in '88, we went to somebody else. We got our green card, became lawful permanent residents in '89. In '95, not being U.S. citizens and not knowing any better, we left the U.S., never having applied for our citizenship. So I have family members who lost that status that we worked so hard to achieve simply for not knowing. I came back in '98 from Israel. Now, when I came to the U.S., I didn't speak English. When I went to Israel as an adult, I didn't speak Hebrew. So I've done the immigration process as a child, as an adult. Came back, went to Rutgers University. I had finished my studies. Then I went to Brooklyn Law School. My intention always actually was, at the time, to go back to Israel. That's where all my parents were. That's where my siblings were. But I met my now wife, and she said, Israel's beautiful. I'm staying here. So, we became...
What's wrong with the Jersey Shore?
There's absolutely nothing. Although when I graduated Ocean Township High School and I left this area, I said, I am never coming back here. And then the moment I graduated law school, the first place I went is right back where you know.
I believe that the Lord has a plan for a lot of people, and your plan was to be an immigration lawyer. After all you've been through, and you say, you know what, I could really help people. And I think that's what really intrigues me about your career and what you do. Tell us a little bit about how you got into it. I mean, not just through the toils and foibles and everything else, but what got you to know what you need, what you do now know. And I know you wrote a book about how to qualify for U.S. citizenship. How did you get into all this, other than the struggles?
I've always done immigration for friends and family, but I never actually charged money for it. I was a litigation attorney, civil litigation. I did a variety of different things in New York and in New Jersey. When I opened up my own law firm, I guess about 5 years ago, and I started, I focused on my language skills. I speak Spanish, I speak Hebrew. My clientele today is about 85, 90% Spanish speaking. And as I started servicing that community, the questions I keep on getting is, how do I achieve legal status? Or how do I keep a loved one here? Or how do I defend them when they're in removal proceedings? And I said, you know what? There's a need. Their history is very much in line with my history. We've had the similar experiences, and there's no greater reward than giving somebody their green card. I mean, their whole life changes. They're so excited. It's not the same thing as when your house was damaged. The insurance company is only giving you a portion. You give them something, but they're never made whole. It's not the same experience. When they get their green card, when they have permission to stay here, their entire life changes. And I find it so rewarding.
As you know, I do a lot of work with the elderly.
Yes.
And in the Polish community, because my grandparents came in 125 years ago, learned it from them, and it stays with, don't read it, don't write it, but I do speak it, one of my staff is there. And there used to be a community of people who knew immigrants, I wouldn't call it, they were on visa status or temporary status. And they were nurses. They were skilled people that would be able to stay at home with the elderly. And the problem is we can never really get them to stay here unless they're going to be married to the person or whatever. And these people are just working here, performing service, and then sending money overseas. And it always drove me nuts that we don't provide a system by which we can use these talents that we don't have enough of, and at an affordable cost, too.
There are limited visa options, but what you're describing would be an employment side scenario.
Right.
So if the employer petitions for them, even though you're right, it's an expensive process, it's a long process, but there is an avenue. It needs a lot of reform. By the way, I'm Polish, but both my grandparents.
Chilean Polish. That's a new
Go
one.
figure.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I mean, all over the world, Hungary, Yugoslavia,
There you go.
but both my maternal, paternal grandparents were Polish.
There you go. But anyway, so you also perform the employment certs too, right? The certifications on
yes.
that. Describe a little bit of that process. If someone, say I had a client who the family really wants them to stay home, they don't want them to go into a nursing home, they just want their loved one being taken care of, and the woman speaks, say, Russian. Okay, it's a Russian family. You want to have some caretaker who speaks Russian.
Well, the challenge is, are you finding someone that's here in the U.S. or are you looking for someone who's abroad?
No, someone who came in here visiting, has a skill, and say, you want to make some money? Yeah, why don't you take care of Mrs. So-and-so?
So in a nutshell, the individual had to have entered the U.S. legally,
Yep.
had to have maintained that legal status all throughout the process we're going to describe. So typically, there is, I mean, if we're talking about getting somebody a green card, not just some kind of temporary status, because each process is different.
And assume for a moment that this person only wants to stay here maybe a year at most because they don't want to leave their loved ones there forever.
Okay.
They're just making money here, sending it overseas because obviously we make more here than you do in some of the, still, even though the no Iron Curtain, it's still better in
Sure.
terms of
A lot of
labor.
those are done through agencies, just because if I have a need, where am I going to find the person?
Right.
Normally, there's an agency that brings them over. That's
Okay,
the most
that's a different
common
one.
way to do it. So that's how, if you're an individual who has that need, you find an agency that services that community, and they can connect the two. But what they do is they typically, there's a petitioning process. The individual needs to be screened. The candidate is going to have a consular visit at the U.S. Embassy in their country. They're going to get interviewed, make sure there's no criminal background, make sure that when they ask you, what are you coming here for, they don't say something completely different than a J1 status, or meaning that if what they're applying for is accurate. Once that happens, they get a stamp on their passport, then they get on a plane and they come over here. But they have to then
you get the green
maintain
card,
that status.
and then you get
That's
a
not a green
that's
card, that's a temporary
the
status.
temporary status. Okay.
Green card is a different process, but you also, from the employment side, in the main, you have to have entered legally, and you have to maintain legal status up until you get your green card. And that's why there are so many people, like 11.5 million of them, who are undocumented, who would like to get legal status. And sometimes I've had a lot of employers that come and say, I'd love to help this key person. And the reality is they can't from the employment side, because they either entered legally and overstayed or entered illegally.
Funny little aside. I've probably been taking care of 5 generations. When I was first starting practice,
Yeah.
my grandparents' contemporaries, and now I'm dealing with my contemporaries' grandchildren. But I had one family, Polish, and I see the woman's name is Wendy. I said, Wendy? There's no such name as Wendy in Poland. She had to change that her citizenship. I didn't realize that when you become a U.S. citizen, you can actually change your name. So it's kind of weird.
There are 2 times where you can change your name legally without having to go before a judge, without filing a specific application: divorce and citizenship. Anything other than that, you have to go before a
for the
judge
name
and
change.
explain
Yeah.
why you're doing that.
I did one for a woman who kept her maiden name and her marriage name, and on her children's birth certificate, they did it hyphenated.
Yeah.
And guess what? The colleges went nuts because they couldn't fit the hyphenation. And so they had a problem with transcripts, and I got the name changed to eliminate that little thing, but because they were born in New York City, when they sent me back the changed birth certificate, all they did was use whiteout on the thing, so it looks like it's actually been an altered document. And not,
You gotta
not
love it.
straight up. So I see you wrote a book about legal status. Tell us a little bit about that, Andres.
Well, we started with seminars, going to churches, nonprofits, organizations, and trying to educate the public about their options for legal status. So first it was a PowerPoint presentation, but in every seminar that I got, there was invariably somebody that raised their hand and said, I'm here 10 years, do I qualify? So I got that question so many times that I said, you know what, let me see if I can provide some information specifically about that. And that's how this book was born.
How long did it take you to write it? Or is it a compilation and then we just extrapolated more and put some...
It's grown. It's grown. I mean, this actually took me probably about 9 months. This is the first published book that I have. I have several others now, but this is the one that I'm most proud of. I give it away to all my clients. And we also have an online tool that couples with this. Whoever gets the book can use that tool 24/7 to figure out, okay, here's information about the paths. Now, how do I apply it to me?
And doesn't it feel good to deal with a client that knows what they're talking about?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, if they come in and somebody says, well, I heard this and I heard that. Is this true? Is this not true? If you read it, you understand it, at least you come in with some intelligent questions. And there's no such thing as this dumb question. How many clients say, I have a dumb question? They're not dumb questions. It just happens to be that you may be dumb in asking it, but that's okay.
We would never say that.
No, absolutely not. That's absolutely not.
I encourage my clients to ask questions, because if not, they walk out of the room, then they're going to ask, then they're going to call. I'd rather deal with the question when they're in front of me rather than have playing phone tag to try to get a hold of somebody. But the book is actually in English and in Spanish, because a lot of my clientele, frankly, that their kids may speak English and they speak some English, but they're more comfortable in the native language.
Have you ever thought of having it converted to Portuguese?
I have.
Given the big population that we have, for Brazilian population
I have,
that we have in the area.
And I have 2 Portuguese-speaking staff members. So most likely our subsequent version will also include it, a Portuguese version.
From the career standpoint, is it 2 good things? You get paid and you get a thank you.
That's right.
You go home and you say, you know what, I did something good for somebody because they not only paid me, but they also thanked me for doing what was necessary for them to be able to stay here with their loved ones.
Generally on the immigration side, we get paid before we send out a petition. So I work with my clients, we give them payment plans, we give them time. But the quicker they want it done, the quicker they have to pay the bill. And we work. Look, most of my clients are blue-collar workers. Most of them work outdoors. So we recognize that in the winter months it's a little more challenging. But at the end of the day, we help people, and that's what I love about what I do.
And I guess it would be safe to say that you could go to an online immigration site that's produced by the federal government and read whatever you want, and you get bleary-eyed, but you would need something like this to actually understand what's going on.
That's correct.
I do a lot of estate work, and a lot of times you get these IRS letters, you send them something, and in 5 paragraphs they say the same thing, we'll get in touch with you. They could have said that in 1 sentence, but they say it in 5 paragraphs. Right. Somebody's got to get paid for all that.
And it's nice and confusing.
Have law schools now got into, we're running down to the final stretch here, got into doing immigration courses? I know ICL does, but
law firms do offer immigration courses, and some, like in Rutgers, have actually immigration clinics.
Okay.
And there are increasing number of clinics around the country, but there's at least one in Camden that I know of.
Out of the Camden Rutgers?
Correct.
And not in Newark? Newark probably should have something like that too.
I know because I've been in touch with the Camden one. I do believe they have one in Newark, but I'm not 100% certain. It would make sense that they would.
Yeah, given the number of people. Well, anyway, Andres, thank you so much. It was very informative, and I want to thank you, the listener and watcher, for Scan.
Thank you for your time.
Take it from me. Living with a chronic disease is no easy task, but I learned to better manage my health condition, and you can too. Take Control of Your Health is the chronic disease self-management program created by Stanford University. This fun, innovative course is now offered to all county residents. Diabetes, arthritis, heart disease, cancer. Take Control of Your Health gives proven strategies to manage these conditions and reclaim your life. See how nutrition, exercise, and various mind techniques can help you overcome depression, increase energy, and manage pain. You'll not only get this book when you participate, you'll also receive the guidance and support of others living with a chronic illness, just like you. Take control of your health in 6 short sessions.
Call the number on your screen to register or get further information at scannj.com. Brought to you by SCAN, Social Community Activities Network, with funding made available by the Monmouth County Office on Aging.
Welcome again to Scan, the show about careers and Career Corner. For those people who are looking for their first career, and some people looking for their second career, and maybe some people at their third career. But today we have someone who's a property manager, and his name is Travis Newarski, not Laborski, Newarski.
Nailed it.
That was from the other movie anyway. Welcome, Travis.
Thank you for having me, Len.
What possessed you to get into this career?
I guess a number of things led up to it. Years ago, I started out managing hotel rooms and condos up in northern New Jersey for a hotel up that way. I was in charge of the maintenance department as a supervisor. So I gained a lot of experience with, I guess, more the mechanical or maintenance end of things. So with a number of years of experience with that, I gained a lot of knowledge on how to maintain things.
Central heat?
Central
lighting,
heat, painting, any kind of maintenance, any kind of odd job that you could think of, I really garnered through that. So it kind of lent a huge hand in my decision to kind of move forward with it, because like I said, I gained a lot of experience and knowledge with all of that. And then I was up in North Jersey then, I moved down to the Jersey Shore about 5-6 years ago now. And family business, my father actually runs the John C. Conover Agency, which is primarily a sales and rental.
Yeah, but your name is not Conover. It's,
No. So he's partners with the original owner of John C. Conover.
Okay.
That's a story for another time.
Okay.
But so starting out in sales and rentals for residential and commercial real estate, I kind of saw the need to kind of branch off into another source of income. The market's not always going to be good like it is nowadays, but so I kind of need another source, kind of a more or less a base salary to kind of supplement.
Get you through the troughs, maybe?
Exactly, because the renters are always going to be there, and the management is always going to be necessary.
Which leads me to this question in terms of your own observation. It seems as though, based on the fact that we did have such a skid in the real estate market, pretty much because of what happened on Wall Street, sure, and the bad mortgage markets, but it seemed as though the rental market is getting stronger in the sense that more investors are willing to do rentals as opposed to investing in condos,
sure,
because they could be sitting on a lot of inventory that's just not going anywhere,
right,
and wind up having to sell it. And from a property tax standpoint, if you build a 50-unit condominium and you don't sell them, they're being taxed as though they're individual units,
right,
as opposed to a 50-unit apartment
exactly
building.
Right. Yeah,
so
which
the
is
tax
a big
is
difference.
like a fraction.
Yeah.
So, and I've actually experienced a deconversion. There was a guy who built a large a condo complex right across from a train station.
Okay.
Makes sense. Everybody wants to be able to commute right across the street, get on the rails, and bingo, get to the city or whatever the big cities are. And he sold 2 units.
That was it.
So 2 units out of the close to 50.
Okay.
And one of my clients bought one of them, and he came back. He says, "I'm going to buy you out." He bought him out.
That was
the other person out.
My
guy then buys something else.
Okay.
And then he just deconverted the whole thing.
So
and he's full. And he's full.
Yeah, so he had much more success with renting them than selling them.
Than condos.
Yeah.
And I've seen a number of places where the town said, okay, you're going to do condos, and then all of a sudden, the market's dead.
It just didn't work out that way.
And it was just they're sucking wind.
I'm dealing with a particular property myself like that, where the developer was not able to sell through, and he's placed tenants. We're slowly selling them off, but it had not gone the way he wished. That's for sure.
So do you have occasion to actually throw tenants out?
I haven't gotten there yet. We're still relatively.
Oh, you're a good landlord.
We're a good landlord.
Put up with a lot.
Yeah. We try to be flexible. You got to be, but obviously there will always come a time where that tenant needs to move on, and we would have to hire someone like yourself to take care of.
So let me ask you this: when you're dealing with your hotel experience, and now you're dealing with the apartment experience, it's the same kind of people skills that you're still going to need.
Sure,
whether it's the renter in the hotel complaining about the windy window,
precisely,
versus the
well, there is
the
a little bit of a difference with that now. I mean, when I was working for the hotel, I was the one hands-on and taking care of it myself. With the business that I run now, we hire out vendors to address these issues with the tenants may have. So whether it be plumbing, electrical, or whatever the case may be, we are
security deposits, all that good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it was interesting that I've seen a number of rentals that the law says that you're only allowed to collect a month and a half security in advance,
Yep.
and you could collect the first month's rent. But I've seen in a number of complexes that say, and I want to collect the last month's rent.
Right.
So, and I've not yet seen where that applies, but it makes sense because a lot of people like to skip out and say, use my security.
Exactly, yeah,
And
I've
they're,
seen that.
gone, and then you have to go chase them after they wreck the joint.
Mm-hmm.
So, so in your travels now, how do you get clients? To reputation, basically?
And a lot of advertising.
Is that right?
A lot of advertising. Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of direct mailing. A lot of we have a rather large internet presence. So yeah, we try to hit it from every angle that we can through print advertising and direct mailing.
So what's the smallest unit you guys would probably handle? Like a 4 maybe, or 6?
No,
maybe?
we'll handle anything from a single family home, condo, all the way up to usually around the largest we would take on is probably like a 10 apartment complex.
It would make sense because there are a lot of snowbirds in this
Exactly
whole
where I was
area,
gonna go next,
and
yeah.
they're looking to rent out, or in
Not
our
even
younger days, we used to go down to Wildwood, and Wildwood was always flooded with the seasonals, and then come September, you had the teachers.
Right.
And that would stay there for 9 months,
Right.
and then somebody had to still maintain or manage.
or either
manage
that,
the
or the property will sit vacant through the winter, and it needs somebody to basically be your eyes in the area, because most of the time they will travel outside the area, and need to make sure that heat is running, which is the
Or
biggest
some
concern.
people winterize.
Winterize
They dump the water and say, okay, that's
Or
it.
that, yeah.
Then you come home and you find a big crack in the ceiling because it was that cold,
Yeah, absolutely.
So, so how else? Is there any suggested places or sources where if someone wanted to become a property manager, say in Ocean Township or in Southern Monmouth or Northern Monmouth, where would they go for guidance to try to find out how you did it?
Well, I mean, I'm not a typical case. I mean, there are property management positions out there where you're working for a property owner and you work through him. In my particular case, I'm a licensed real estate agent, and I kind of gather my business, through I represent a lot of investors as well. So I gather a lot of properties that way. If somebody's looking to go on and work for somebody, I mean, I can't really tell you exactly where to go for that as far as a source goes. But I mean, if they are looking for a job, we're always looking to take on new employees or contractors.
Yeah, but you're doing this full time. I mean, a lot of people like to use real estate sales as a part-time event,
right.
And sometimes they'll miss a sale by just doing things part-time.
That's true. That's
If
true.
you're not doing it full-time,
Yeah.
you might as well not do
I
it
mean,
at all.
the sales and the rentals could absolutely be a part-time gig, but when you're a property manager, I mean, by no means is it part-time. It's going to be more or less a 24/7 gig. I mean, granted, you're not always getting those calls in the middle of the night. I mean, it all depends on how you're operating and running your properties and making sure they're well maintained, but you do have to be available. I mean, I am hired and contracted to be readily available for these tenants.
So I'm not supposed to ask you this, but are you married? Does your wife kick you out of bed when you get a call at 2 o'clock in the morning?
Just 1 month. Actually, well, married 1 month now.
Oh,
and,
so she's not used to this yet.
No, we've been together for a very long time, so she is. Those calls are few and far in between. They really are. But that's not to say that they don't occur.
But things happen all the time. I mean, it could happen anytime.
Yeah,
anytime. Snow collapses. What about snow removal? I mean, you got the contractors. You got to get called on that.
Absolutely. I mean, there are cases where the tenant is responsible for just that, or where the landlord will take care of that.
And what if the tenant doesn't?
Well, I mean, then we're going to charge them back for getting the contractor out there to take care of it.
Which you made a very unhappy tenant.
Of course. But
even
you
though
gotta
it could have been their
you
responsibility.
gotta hold up your end of the bargain.
Do you actually do the drafting of the leases too at the same time, or is that something that somebody else does?
I do. I handle as well.
You have a standard realtor's
Exactly. I use the NJR.
Fill in the blanks.
Fill in the blank. Boilerplate. Yep. Easy enough.
Make sure you have those attorney's fees included there as additional rent. You always got to look at that.
Yes, of course,
okay.
of course.
And the number of occupants to make sure that they have.
Everybody
I
stayed
think
in the
probably
CO
the toughest thing is throwing out people who then, it's just me and my cat. Well, yeah. How come there's 5 names on the mailbox?
Right.
And where did they come from?
Yeah.
Oh well, no, I'm only collecting the mail for my brother. He's really living someplace else. And then next thing you know, every morning he comes in and out of the place. So. Where geographically, what areas are you covering? You cover Long Branch, Asbury?
Yeah, primarily the Jersey
Red
Shore.
Bank?
So I'm located in Asbury Park, and to better serve my clients, I like to be within 20 to 30 minutes of the property. I do like to do weekly inspections of the property, and getting to the property, making it easier time-wise. I mean, time is money, as you know, and being closer to the property, but will better serve me should there ever be an emergency I need to get there. So if it's too far away, I don't think I could really serve that property and that owner of that property very well.
And probably one of the last things you want to do is be on the Parkway sometimes.
Not at all. Not at all.
Especially on a Friday, for example, special short
middle of
times.
summer,
you
no
just
thanks.
you
No
stay,
thanks. I
take
steer
use of
clear.
side roads and all
Yeah,
that.
that's right.
So what do you find rewarding about this?
I like to help people. I mean, I've always had interest in real estate, and getting into property management. I mean, it's been very rewarding in a sense that I get to, renting the properties to people who are deserving and in needing of a place. That's a very rewarding aspect. And then maintaining the properties. I mean, it's kind of it's very rewarding in the sense that you get an instant gratification. So once you do address something, it's taken care of, and you move on to the next.
And you also have to bring in the state inspectors or the city inspectors for the 5-year multiple dwelling
That's right.
inspection for each cycle,
Yes.
and you have to arrange for getting that all
Yeah,
fixed
there's always
up.
something that will come up then, so you need to address that.
Smoke
And
detectors aren't
reinspection.
working.
Yes,
And
yes.
I'll tell you, the people in Long Branch are very, very good at making sure the inspections come around. And I mean, they check your batteries in hallways. They do all sorts of stuff that you probably wouldn't even notice.
Right.
You
Exactly.
as a
Yeah,
tenant.
so
or a
not
landlord.
only every occupancy change do you need to handle those items, you do have those 5-year inspections as well.
Well, it's funny because there are some towns that will want a CO every time you have what you call a change in occupancy, which means when your girlfriend moves in, they want a new CO. And you say,
Right.
well, a little bit of a privacy issue here,
Right.
who I'm going to live with, who I'm not going to live with, and why would you need to inspect when we're changing nothing?
Yeah, right.
But and I think a lot of it too goes back to the bawdy Belmar days when all the college kids go out there and the suds are not the ones that you have in the washing machine, but rather the ones that come out of a bottle.
Right.
If you know what I'm talking about. And they're looking more at crowd control and things like that, especially on the summer rentals. So, and then getting back to that, so do you see, like in a community like Asbury, which is a growing and a very dynamic community, that they still do some seasonals there?
Absolutely. Actually, it's a very new market for Asbury Park, being that there are a lot of people starting to vacation there again. So my agency was kind of on the forefront, going back to the CO aspect, we were kind of on the forefront of bringing in a new type of CO called a seasonal CO. So rather than every occupancy change, rather than having it re-inspected and a new fee, we have a summer CO now, which would allow us to have one CO for the entire length of the summer season.
Basically from Memorial Day to Labor Day or something like that?
So all of what really that would be required after the initial inspection was you just have to advise the city, the zoning department, of who is occupying the home at any given point.
So make sure there's no overcrowding and there's just another thing that's going along with that.
Exactly, which makes it a lot easier for those weekly turnovers, because before that you're required to have somebody out every single week.
Yeah, I've represented people who have been,
so it became problematic and kind of a deterrent for these homeowners to take advantage of it.
Well, Travis, the time has gone so fast, right?
Yeah.
You never think it was. Anyway, I want to thank you, the viewers of Scan. Thank you, Travis
Thank you for having
Newarski,
me.
and thank you, Conover Agency.
Absolutely.
Good to see you again. Thanks.
Thank you.